Good morning. Good morning to all the members of the Transportation Review Committee. So just as a reminder, some housekeeping items. Turn on your mics, your Zooms, for unmute yourself essentially to clearly state your name when speaking, so everyone can hear you. I'm sure everybody remembers that we'll be doing roll call votes for all the action items. And that's actually the first thing that we'll get started with is a roll call of all the members. Linda, will you take that?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, here we go. Members, please let me know if you're in attendance. Brant Anderson,
Here.
Scott Bender, I thought I saw him here. Okay, we'll come back. Rob Bohr, Greg Byers,
Here.
thank you. Trevor Ebersol,
Present.
thank you. Jorge Gastelum,
Present.
thank you. Carol Ketcherside,
Here for Wolf Groat.
thank you. David Janover, Scott Lowe, Adina Lund,
Here.
thank you. Hal Marin, Jamie McCracken, Mark Melichenko,
Here.
thank you. Sunit Mohan,
Here.
thank you. Paul Mood,
Here.
thank you. Timothy Oliver, Ryan Peters,
Here.
thank you. Eduardo Rodiles, Christopher Salas,
Here.
thank you. Woodrow Scouten, Robert Yabies,
Here.
thank you. Ed Stillings,
Here.
thank you. Bob Thaxton, Kristen Tytler,
Here.
thank you. Michael Weber,
Here.
thank you. Troy White, Steve Wilcox, Herschel Workman, and RJ Zetter.
Here.
Thank you. Is there anybody I've missed?
Linda, this is Eduardo C. Maricopa. I think I was on mute.
Thank you, Eduardo.
Scott Bender with Pinal County is here.
Thank you, Scott. Chair, we have a quorum.
Great. Thank you very much, Linda. So we'll move on to item 2 is the call to the audience. An opportunity for public comment was provided ahead of the meeting and staff did not receive any comments for this meeting. And so we will move on to item 3, which is the Transportation Policy and Planning Director's report. Tim Stroh, the Transportation Policy and Planning Director, will give us an update on activities of general interest. Tim?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the Transportation Review Committee. Good morning. It's nice to see everybody this morning. I hope everybody had a nice Thanksgiving weekend and is hopefully going to get some much needed vacation time this Christmas time. Couple updates for you this morning. HERF and RARF collections continue to do well. October collections for HERF were approximately 7.9% higher than October of 2019. And RARF collections were approximately 16% higher than October of 2019. So that's great news moving forward. Also, MAG is in the process of conducting an annual update to the ALCP. A memo was sent out to the ALCP working group on November 19th outlining the process and asking members to submit project workbooks to MAG by January 25th. Please let Kristen Myers know as soon as possible if you'll be requesting any substitute projects or changes in project scope. The deadline to notify MAG of substitute projects or changes in scope is December 31st, 2020, end of this year. Please contact Kristen Myers after the meeting if you have any questions. Her email is kmyers@azmag.gov. And last, I know we're very grateful to have Carol Ketcherside attend us today at the meeting. Wolf was unable to attend. Wolf is the Director of Capital and Service Development at Volume Metro. He is retiring at the end of the year, so I wanted to thank him for his years of service. He has had a wonderful career. He's had a direct impact on transit planning since 1985. So if you get a chance to shoot him an email, give him a call, congratulate him, and we wish him and his wife the best of luck in their new adventure. So, Mr. Chair, that completes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
All right. Thank you so much, Tim. That will take us to item 4, approval of the consent agenda. Items 4A through 4F are on the consent agenda, which are the October 29th, 2020 meeting minutes, Transportation Improvement Program project changes. 4C is the 2020 annual report on the status of implementation of Prop 400. 4D is the FY23 and FY24 priority listing of Pinal County arterial bridge projects. 4E is recommendation of projects for MAG fiscal year 21 traffic signal optimization program. And 4F is the transportation alternatives non-infrastructure safe routes to school projects. Do any members of the committee have questions on any of these items or would like a presentation on any of the consent items? Okay, hearing none. Is there a motion to approve items 4A through 4F?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda, Anderson.
Thank you, Grant Anderson.
I second, Robert Yabas.
Okay, thank you so much. I got the second, got the motion and the second. Linda, roll call time.
Here we go. Grant Anderson, how do you
Aye.
vote?
Aye.
Scott Bender,
Aye.
Greg Byers,
Aye.
Trevor Ebersol,
Aye.
Jorge Gastelum,
Aye.
Carol Ketcherside,
Aye.
Adina Lund,
Aye.
Mark Melichenko,
Aye.
Sumit Mohan,
Aye.
Mahmood,
Aye.
Ryan Peters,
Yes.
Eduardo Rodiles,
Aye.
Christopher Salas,
Aye.
Robert Yabies,
Aye.
Kristen Teitler,
Aye.
Michael Weber,
Aye.
and Chair, how do you vote?
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right. Thank you, Linda. Item 5 is the MAG Federal Highway Administration funding federal fiscal year 21 closeout. This item will be presented by Patrick Stone, MAG Transportation Performance Program Manager. So I'll turn it over to you, Patrick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of Transportation Review Committee. My name is Patrick Stone. I'm Transportation Improvement Program Supervisor at MAG. The item on the agenda today is the federal fiscal year 2021 closeout. As part of my presentation, I'll be going over activities that are eligible for closeout, briefly cover the purpose of closeout and the rules, discuss the available funding for this year, go through the requests that were received, and then finally present an option to TRC for consideration. Next slide, please. excuse me. So the eligible programs and activities for closeout, as you can see on the slide, deal with the non-life cycle modal programs, air quality, including both sweepers and paving unpaved roads, bicycle pedestrian and transportation alternative projects, ITS and system management projects, the Pinal County Arterial Bridge, roadway safety, safe routes to school, and then various planning studies and design assistance grants. These programs use FHWA funding that's suballocated to the MAG region. As such, they must comply with federal regulations. In most instances, these projects actually authorized through ADOT, although there are some projects that are included in the Unified Planning Work Program that are actually managed and procured by MAG. Next slide, please. So the purpose of closeout. The purpose of closeout is, as it states, to ensure that all federal funding suballocated to the region is obligated. Starting back in, I believe it was 2012, funding went to a use or lose, and any funding that is not obligated by the end of the federal fiscal year is subject to being swept. As it states, closeout is not guaranteed to happen. It's based on available funding, which leads to the question, where does the funding come from? And there's actually numerous sources for closeout funding in a particular year. Project deferrals, obviously, projects that also come in under budget. If we have closeouts, and I noticed this as I wrote this slide saying closeout, it's a different, but when projects are complete and they're completed, any additional funding released out at the end also would go towards closeout. If there's any variance between projected funding and actual federal funding, loans that are repaid, and then the last item I put on there is something that may not be familiar to the committee. It's August redistribution, which is where the federal government every year asks if states have excess funding. If they do, it's redistributed to other states. However, that is actually maintained at the state level by the Arizona Department of Transportation. Next slide, please. MAG Federal Fund Program Guidelines and Procedures. This was approved by Regional Council back in June of 2015 and provides the guidance that directs and dictates how closeout is done, specifically section 500.4, which is the redistribution of the unused FHWA funding. And I've included the actual bullet from the guidelines, and it states that early in the calendar year, the Transportation Review Committee will consider priorities for the redistribution of funding, and it lists the order, if you shall, of how the closeout requests are considered, dealing with advancing projects, increasing projects for currently programmed, and then potential loans. Next slide, please. So for federal fiscal year 2021, this is the breakout of funding that we have, and we've determined that there would be excess funding. MAG issued a closeout memo, as the chair stated, back on October 19th, announcing over $25 million was available. And if you'll notice at the slide in the bottom right-hand corner, it shows the amount at 14.56 million. And the difference between that amount and then what was actually in the memo that was provided to member agencies are potential savings that have yet to be realized and shown in the tip. Specifically, if we have project deferrals that have not gone through the committee process, I didn't want to show them here, but those would have been available for closeout should the request have been larger. Another item to quickly point out, this is the federal funding for a year is based on federal law and then on federal budget bills. At this point in time, we're still operating under a continuing resolution with the federal government that's actually set to expire tomorrow. And so we don't know actually what total federal funding levels for fiscal year 2021 might be. Potentially they could be higher. If so, that would have a benefit to the region as well. Next slide, please. So the requests that were asked for, the closeout requests were due to MAG on November 13th at 5 p.m. Late requests weren't accepted, and we did receive 34 requests totaling just under $14.5 million, as you can see on the slide. All requests, excuse me, were deemed to be eligible based on MAG policies, and as you can see by the slide, we've categorized the request as advancements, projects that require additional funding, both in construction and design, funding for right-of-way, and then also projects that would be new projects to the program. And these specifically deal with air quality projects. Next slide, please. This slide here, apologize, it's a little difficult to read the text, unfortunately, but what this really shows is that previous slide in a graphical format, highlighting where the dollars were actually requested. The lion's share, obviously, for this year was additional funding for current construction and procurement projects. Next slide, please. So the option being presented to TRC today is to actually cover the request to fund all closeout requests. As you can see on the slide, the request was 14.45 million in projects, and the available funding without any additional deferrals was 14.56 million, meaning the region does have sufficient funding to cover all closeout requests with a remaining balance of under 9,000. That balance of funding would actually, and any potential savings that are realized through the rest of the year, would be loaned to one of the other life cycle programs for repayment in an out year of the TIP. Next slide, please. So the action being requested of TRC is to recommend approval to proceed with the proposed closeout scenario. I've also included my contact information on the bottom of the slide if there's other questions after the meeting. Next slide, please. Mr. Chair, members of the committee, that concludes my presentation, and I'd be available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions by members of the committee? Okay, hearing no questions, do I have a motion to approve this item?
Adina Lund, I move to approve.
Thank you, Adina.
Second.
Ryan Peters, second.
Thank you, Ryan. We have a motion and a second to approve item 5. And another roll call.
Grant Anderson.
Aye.
Thank you. Scott Bender. Greg Byers.
Aye.
Thank you. Trevor Ebersol.
Aye.
Jorge Gastelum.
Aye.
Thank you. Carol Cutcherside.
Aye.
Thank you. Mark Melichenko.
Yes.
Thank you. Sumit Mohan.
Aye.
Thank you. Paul Mood.
Aye.
Eduardo Guadilas. Eduardo.
Aye.
Thank you. Christopher Salas.
Aye.
Thank you. Robert Yabez.
Aye.
Thank you. Kristen Teitler.
Aye.
Michael Weber.
Aye.
RJ Zetter.
Aye.
Thank you. Have I missed anyone?
Hi, this is Scott Lowe from Buckeye. I joined late and I vote aye.
Thank you, Scott.
The same for Bob Thaxton.
Thank you, Bob. Motion carries unanimously.
Oh, okay, thank you. I also vote aye on that one, just for the record.
My apologies.
And no problem. So that takes us to item 6, Transit Asset Management Regional Targets. This is going to be presented by Ted Brown, MAG Transportation Performance Program Manager. So I'll turn it over to Ted for the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hello, everyone, and good morning. As you said, my name is Ted Brown. I'm the Transportation Performance Program Manager here at MAG. It's a pleasure to be here today to talk to you about transit asset management. Next slide, please. So, a short refresher on transit asset management, or TAM. MAP 21 came along and really changed the performance landscape in a number of ways, including new asset management requirements. It required that all recipients of Chapter 53 funds that own, manage, or operate capital assets need to have a TAM plan, and that plan should outline several items, including the people, tools, and processes the agency will use to support asset management practices. To be clear, the item we have for you today only covers a small portion of the overall TAM plans related specifically to targets, but there's certainly more to the story in the individual TAM plans of the agencies. Next slide, please. So FTA recognizes that not all agencies that receive those Chapter 53 funds are the same. So they've created a tiered system. Tier 1 agencies must have their own TAM plan, while Tier 2 agencies may elect to develop their own TAM plan or participate in group TAM plans. The graphic on the right gives a quick synopsis of how the agency tiers are determined. In the MAG region, we currently have 4 Tier 1 agencies, Valley Metro RPTA, Valley Metro Rail, City of Phoenix, and City of Tempe. Those 4 agencies provided the targets we'll be discussing today. Next slide, please. So to start drilling down just a little bit, TAM requires that providers of public transportation measure and set performance targets in 4 areas. Rolling stock and equipment, which are both related to the age of the asset in question, then facilities and infrastructure, which are reported as the condition of the asset. On the right, we got a very useful cheat sheet from FTA, which outlines the useful life benchmarks for a variety of those transit asset types. Next slide, please. So before I dive into the slide, I want to be very clear that I have the privilege of presenting the hard work of others in this table. MAG does not maintain the data sets needed to compile this information. And this table in particular is the result of the hard work of Wendy Plantinitis at Valley Metro, Carl Montgomery at the City of Phoenix, and Eric Iverson at the City of Tempe. This table represents the targets they've outlined for their respective agencies across the 4 performance categories from the previous slide, and is reflective of the state of good repair schedules developed by the agencies. To grossly oversimplify how this table is created, assets across the agencies are inventoried. Their age is then compared to their useful life benchmarks, or they are rated for their condition using the term rating scale. Then a percentage is calculated and reported to the National Transit Database, or NTD. I should note that the FTA has not set penalties for missing TAM performance targets and has not set any rewards for attaining a target. However, transit providers are required to submit an annual narrative report to the NTD to provide a description of any change in the condition of a provider's transit system from the previous year and describe the progress made during the year towards the targets set in the previous year. So with that, MAG is recommending adoption of these targets as our regional TAM performance targets for this year. Next slide, please. Since TAM is an ongoing requirement, I thought to mention some of our next steps and some of the work we're doing. First, established a TAM working group that is meeting every 6 months to discuss TAM related items and help refine how our regional targets should be reported moving forward. I think we're striving to report a single regional percentage rather than the kind of busy table that was on the last slide, but we're still ironing out how some of those details happen so we can do it consistently year over year. TAM targets were last put through the committee cycle in mid-2017 and did not appear at this committee. However, we're committed to bringing these targets through MAG committees annually moving forward, and bringing them to TRC brings consistency to all of our federal performance measures. Finally, we're in the process of redoing our performance dashboard to include a larger focus on those federal performance measures, including TAM. The way we report on transit performance in general will be undergoing a bit of a revamp, and we hope to add longitudinal tracking to these targets moving forward in our ongoing efforts to provide additional transparency. Next slide, please. Mr. Chair, this item is on the agenda today for action. MAG recommends adopting the targets for Tier 1 agencies as our regional TAM performance targets. That completes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions.
All right, are there any questions for Ted on this presentation?
So this is Carol Ketcherside. I would move approval.
All right, straight to the motion. Thank you, Carol. Do we have a second?
Second, Robert Yabit.
Thank you, Robert. Got a motion and a second. Roll call.
Grant Anderson.
Aye.
Thank you. Greg Byers.
Aye.
Thank you. Trevor Ebersol. Jorge Gastelum.
Aye.
Thank you. Scott Lowe.
Aye.
Thank you. Adina Lund.
Aye.
Thank you. Mark Malachenko.
Aye.
Thank you. Sumit Mohan.
Aye.
Thank you. Paul Mood.
Aye.
Thank you. Ryan Peters.
Aye.
Thank you. Eduardo Rodales.
Aye.
Thank you. Christopher Salas.
Aye.
Thank you. Bob Thaxton.
Aye.
Thank you. Kristen Tytler.
Aye.
Thank you. Michael Weber.
Aye.
Thank you. RJ Zetter.
Aye.
Thank you. Chair, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Linda. All right, moving on to item 7, paving of unpaved roads, programming fiscal years 23 to 24 projects. This is going to be, again, Patrick Stone, MAG Transportation Performance Program Manager. Patrick?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the TRC, once again, pleasure to be presenting another item to the committee. This item is covering, as the chair said, paving unpaved roads, programming for fiscal years 2023 and 2024. The action to be requested today is to recommend approval of a proposed programming scenario. This action item is consistent with the MAG federal funding programming guidelines and procedures adopted by Regional Council back in June of 2015. Next slide, please. To start, I just wanted to show a brief graphic highlighting the PM10 and PM2.5 non-attainment areas within the MAG region, as these are the areas that were part and parcel of the call for projects. Next slide, please. So what this slide does is a brief recap of the call for projects. It was for fiscal years 23 and 24. You can see the available funding was just slightly under $11 million. Eligible activities included paving unpaved roads, shoulders, alleys, access points. For this call for project cycle, 6 applications were received, and the total requested was $11.2 million. One thing to note to the committee is there weren't any projects requested utilizing CMAQ 2.5 funding. So that $865,000 that's shown on this slide is actually not going to be part of the considerations you will see on the next few slides. Next slide, please. So what I'm showing here are the project rankings. These are based on the Air Quality Technical Advisory Committee scores. It just merely shows them in the order of scoring. You can see both the project, the amount requested, and the year requested for construction. Next slide, please. This slide is an alternate view of the previous slide. And what I've done here is actually now isolated both the year, the funding amount available in that year, the amount requested, and then showing any surplus or deficit in each year. And as you can tell by this current slide, slightly underprogrammed in fiscal year 23, a bit overprogrammed in fiscal year 24 for a net overprogramming of just over $1.1 million. Next slide, please. So the proposed programming that's going to be part of the recommended action to TRC has a couple of components. The first was to actually, working with the town of Gilbert, they have agreed to accelerate the construction year for their project from fiscal year 24 to 23. And the other thing, and we'll see it on the next slide, it's not as apparent on this slide, was by moving that town of Gilbert project, it actually created a surplus in fiscal year 24. And then taking the surplus from fiscal year 24 and moving those funds up to fiscal year 23. Next slide, please. So here you can see the net effect of those actions. What has happened is we've advanced the Town of Gilbert project to 2023. And then what we've done is we've taken the balance of funding and used that to partially, although I would say quite a bit, partially funded the city of Scottsdale project that was ranked 6th. Next slide, please. So the requested action would be to recommend approval of the proposed programming scenario, which would fully fund the top 5 projects and mostly fund the number 6 project. Next slide, please. And then, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, that concludes my presentation. And again, I would be available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Are there any questions on item 7? Okay, hearing no questions. Is there a motion to approve?
This is Mark Melnichenko. I recommend approval.
Thank you, Mark. Is there a second?
Trevor with Glendale, the second.
Thank you so much. All right, we got a motion and a second. Roll call.
Thank you. Grant Anderson.
Aye.
Thank you. Greg Byers.
Aye.
Jorge Gastelum.
Aye.
Thank you. Carol Countryside.
Aye.
Thank you. Scott Lau.
Aye.
Thank you. Adina Lund.
Aye.
Thank you. Mark, motion. Sumit Mohan.
Aye.
Thank you. Paul Mood.
Aye.
Thank you. Ryan Peters.
Aye.
Thank you. Eduardo Rodilas.
Aye.
Thank you. Christopher Salas.
Aye.
Thank you. Robert Yabez.
Aye.
Thank you. Bob Thaxton.
Aye.
Thank you. Kristen Teitler.
Aye.
Thank you. Michael Weber.
Aye.
RJ Vetter.
Aye.
Chair, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Have I missed anybody? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, so moving on to item 8, the MAG roadway safety program projects. Another controversial item on this agenda. So we got a presentation today by Margaret Herrera, MAG Transportation Safety Program Manager. So I'll turn it over to Margaret for the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the MAG Transportation Review Committee. This item is on your agenda for action today, and your interest in this very important funding program is appreciated, as is my opportunity to provide a report. Next slide, please. I'm going to provide a very brief history of the roadway safety program. Last January 2019, we worked really closely and collaborated with ADOT to develop the program. We also worked with a multi-agency RSP working group that also included a former member actually of your committee. So we felt it important to include people members not only of the safety committee, but also on the TRC. From there, we designed the program itself. We came up with the application, the evaluation criteria, and put out the first call for projects sometime right after September, after the policies and procedures was approved by Regional Council in late September. So from there, we did get the fiscal year 2020 and 2021 projects programmed into the TIP with the approval by Regional Council again in January of 2020. So from there, we immediately started working with the agencies that had projects that were funded in developing joint agency agreements. They moved forward with their design. Some of them already had their design done, and we move forward with those projects to be completed. And I would say, I have another slide coming up where we can show some of the status of those, but nearly 100% of those are already in the ground. So you can see the importance of getting these projects and getting them in the ground quickly. We also received some reporting from the member agencies on their 2020 projects, and we compiled an annual report and also prepared for the fiscal year 2020 program, which is really the subject of this presentation and this action really. The 2021 projects will be complete somewhere around September, or you see I have it in quarters here, so probably late quarter starting September of 2021. And we will again start preparing for the second annual report, as well as funding of fiscal year 2023 projects. Next slide, please. So just a couple of snippets from the first annual report. Next slide, please. So you'll see here that we have about 2 million a year projected for a total of 10 million, and that's through 2020 through 2024 fiscal years. In the first call for 2020, we funded 7 projects in 5 member agencies for about $2.4 million. Now, I don't expect you to read that paragraph there under about RSP, but the important thing here is that this program was initiated to be a supplement to the state's highway safety improvement program. And it facilitates a highway user fund swap and regional safety program that can improve safety conditions on our roadways in all areas. And that includes urbanized as well as some of our more rural areas. Next slide, please. So this is just kind of a layout of the fiscal year 2020 projects. The local agency immediately underneath the agency is the type of countermeasure, safety countermeasure or project that they are or had proposed or got funded, and the funding amount. On the right hand, you see kind of a typical project timeline. However, for fiscal year 2020, we are under kind of a short fuse timeline, as it were, because we received approval for that funding in January, and we needed to get those completed pretty quickly. Next slide, please. So this slide just kind of gives you a little bit of the status and financials, and keep in mind too that this was developed for our July Transportation Safety Committee meeting. So this is what's in the annual report. The items that you see on the right-hand side here about status project, again, it goes by the member agency receiving funding and their project type. Those dots are much more complete now, as I had mentioned a little bit earlier. On the left-hand side, you see on the top, again, at that time, the percentage of joint agency agreements that had been executed, the status of design and construction at that time. Up below, you see some of the financials that kind of outlines, again, the projected $2 million, as you see for 2022. We did overprogram a little bit in 2021 as well as 2022 by the amounts that are shown there. And so we had a little bit less than $2 million available for funding for this 2022 program. Next slide, please. Okay, so for this year, for 2022, we issued the call for projects along with the larger tip call for projects. And as I mentioned before, we had a little over $1.8 million available. And we had received requests for nearly $4 million. So that just tells me the need for this type of program. Down below, you see just kind of a general description of some of the safety improvements that are requested through this program. Next slide, please. So from that call for projects, the applications were due on October 1st. We had 12 applications from 6 local agencies. And from there, the Transportation Safety Committee moved into the evaluation and recommendation phase for the program, and ended up recommending 6 projects for about $1.9 million, as you can see here. Next slide, please. Here's an example, and as you might note from the attachment in your summary transmittal for this item, this is the #1 ranked project. This is just kind of an example of the presentation that is provided by the member agencies to the safety committee. These were provided in November, this past November, and you can see the criteria is really based on the crash rate, the benefit cost ratio, and then a presentation score. All those are weighted that go into the final score. So this type of countermeasure is become one of the more popular ones for this program because of its low cost and high impact potential in reducing the types of crashes, particularly left turn movement crashes. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, this is on your agenda for action today, and the requested action is to recommend approval of the list of projects to be funded with the available MAG RSP funds in fiscal year 2022. Next slide, please. And with that, Mr. Chair, I would be happy to take any questions. My contact information here below, should you have any questions after the meeting.
Okay, thank you, Margaret, for the presentation, the great presentation. Appreciate that. Are there any questions or comments on this item? Okay, I do want to say I appreciate the presentation and being able to get a little bit deeper look at the projects. We know it looks like we've got some more pedestrian improvements, pedestrian crossing improvements in the mix, and so that's good to see given the problems that our state and region have had with some pedestrian safety issues. And I know that we're going to continue to work on that and try to make it improvements and bring that number down. So really appreciate that. So with that, is there a motion to approve this item?
Adina Lund, I move to approve.
Thanks, Adina. Second? Do I have a second?
Yeah, this is Sumit Mohan with the City of Goodyear.
Thank you, Sumit. Okay. Got a motion and a second. Let's do another roll call.
Here we go. Grant Anderson.
Aye.
Thank you. Greg Byers.
Aye.
Thank you. Trevor Ebersol.
Aye.
Thank you. Jorge Gastelum.
Aye.
Thank you. Carol Kutcherside.
Aye.
Thank you. Scott Lowe.
Aye.
Thank you. Mark Malachenko.
Aye.
Thank you. Paul Mood.
Aye.
Thank you. Ryan Peters.
Aye.
Thank you. Eduardo Raudalis.
Aye.
Thank you. Christopher Salas.
Aye.
Thank you. Robert Yedez.
Aye.
Thank you. Bob Faxton. Kristen Teitler.
Aye.
Thank you. Michael Weber.
Aye.
Thank you. RJ Zetter.
Aye.
Thank you. Chair, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Thanks so much, Linda. All right, that takes us to item 9, which is our member agency update, opportunity for any member agencies to give some announcements. Are there any announcements by TRC members today? All right, hearing none, we'll move to item 10, which is the request for future agenda items. Does anyone have any requests for future items? Okay, well, that's it. That's our meeting. Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate you sitting through all the controversy and deep discussion on all these items. No, it's good. I appreciate all the presentations by the staff. You guys did a great job. The meetings are going very smoothly. So thanks, everybody. You have a great day, and our meeting is adjourned. Oh, a reminder, our next meeting is January 28th at 10 o'clock. Thanks.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you and happy holidays.